All right, this is episode 4, take 346. All right, let's do this.
All right, hi everybody. I'm Rachel and this is Reese, and we are here with another episode of our Apologetics Canada for Kids.
Yes, it's good. It's the 4th one, right?
Yes, episode 4.
I'm still on one hand. I'm very excited about that. We can only go up to 10. Then I will no longer be able to keep track of stuff.
Okay, maybe you could use your toes.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't showered them in a while.
Oh, okay.
You know, quarantine, right? No showers. I think that means that, right? But
exactly.
Hey, it's episode 4. I need to make an apology. Can I make an apology?
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't know, camera 1, camera 2. Okay, here we go. I quoted Louisa May Alcott, beloved author of beloved book, Belovedly Little Women. And I got some feedback that the quote that I made, which was, she was talking about how she's not that afraid of storms because she's learning to sail her ship. And I had said Louisa May Alcott said that. She wrote that. It's one of her characters that said that. So she wasn't, Louisa May Alcott, the author, wasn't talking about her personal philosophy about worry and fear. It's one of her characters. So it's actually Amy is talking about the first couple of years of marriage and about how it takes some getting used to. So hopefully all you huge Little Women fans that have been stalking me with pitchforks and axes, please accept my profound apology for getting that part wrong. So hopefully now the fear in my own life can go away and we can get back to normal. So it was an honest mistake, but you know, you do want to get those quotes right. You want to get those quotes right. So that was one thing. And so that's the fear side. But on the joy side, I've been looking at some of the entries and stuff like that, and they're fantastic. Somebody actually took a photograph of me and froze that in ice. So I'm going to take it as a compliment rather than a threat. You know, because usually when you put somebody on ice, you know, that's something that you should worry about. No, apparently we're fine. How have you been? How has the last couple of days been for you in quarantine?
I've been great. Yeah, I am super thankful for technology like this that we're using to film. I've been able to chat one-on-one with all of my students this week, and man, I am getting a good glimpse into their lives at home. I'm learning all kinds of new things about them, which is super fun.
A glimpse into their lives or a glimpse into their rooms?
Into their rooms.
Wow.
Some of them take me on tours of their house. Some of them introduce me to their pets.
Wow. I really hope they check with their parents before they take you of a tour of the house.
Yeah, there's a lot of parents like rushing out of view, you know, as we come around a corner.
Yeah.
Madly rushing to pick up the dirty laundry. And
Go put pants on, maybe.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
saying.
Yeah.
Always check before you give. Yeah, you know, it's interesting how there's like different ideas of what's polite for different scenarios.
Yeah.
And many of us are learning for the first time what's polite for, you know, even this sort of thing. Like for you and I, we're used to seeing each other, and it's super easy for us to take turns. And then when I can't see you, I just talk and talk and talk. And I for those of you guys who are watching this, I was talking to Rachel just before this about how because I can't really pick up on your cues, I'm just going on and on and on. And you could leave and go get a sandwich, and I probably wouldn't even notice it. And I'm actually going to really work on that.
It's interesting, right? Because when we record our podcast, actually, one of the things that we had to learn how to do was to lean forwards when we wanted to talk and lean backwards. And so when we're recording our podcast and I do this, it's super obvious that I want to say something. And so Reese stops talking, right? And then I stop talking when he does that to me.
Yeah. No, it's a whole...
We're figuring out this new system.
It's a whole new thing. My wife suggested that we just put up our hands. Say, I want to talk. And so that's always something. I'm using one of these virtual backgrounds, so I can hold up my hand and it can also kind of disappear if I move too fast. So that's kind of funny. So hey,
maybe I could try out this today. I've been learning that what we're using to record has a mute button. So when I'm talking, you know, and the kids normally when we're in school, they're talking at the same time as me. Now I can just press mute, and it's amazing.
It's very exciting.
So if you start monologuing, maybe I'll just cut you off that way.
You know what? That works too. It's a lesson learned. So what are we learning about today?
All right. So today we are talking about Jesus and some of his friends. And we're going to be talking about the fear that they felt. And fear is a really powerful emotion. When we think about, we can feel angry, we can feel happy and joyful. And fear is a really, really strong emotion that people often react to really differently. And in our episode where we talked about Jesus in the garden, we talked about how he responded to fear and how his response was to talk to God and to trust him. And because of that, he was able to continue serving God and loving other people.
That's right.
But we've also talked a little bit about how Jesus's friends didn't always get what was happening, right? And so we're going to wonder today, when they get scared, what do they do? Do they keep trusting God, or do they not?
Well, how about we start with Peter?
Let's do it.
Peter would be a great start. Do you have your storybook Bible ready?
All right, so I'm going to read now. This version in my storybook Bible, it's not really they don't give Peter a whole lot of screen time. So I'm going to read this from the actual Bible.
Okay, give me a second. I got to get myself into my proper zone.
Okay, get into the zone.
I am so ready. Okay, go for it.
All right. So this is happening right after they were in the garden. And the soldiers came and arrested Jesus and took him away. And they brought him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed them, but he did not go near Jesus. The soldiers started a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat together. Peter sat with them. A servant girl saw Peter sitting there near the light. She looked closely at Peter's face and said, "This man was also with Jesus." But Peter said that was not true. He said, "Girl, I don't know him." A short time later, another person saw Peter and said, "You're one of them. You're one of those followers of Jesus." And Peter said, "No, I'm not." And about an hour later, another man insisted, "It is true. This man was with him. He's from Galilee." And Peter said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And immediately, while Peter was still speaking, a rooster crowed. And then Jesus turned and looked straight at Peter. And Peter remembered what the Lord had said. "Before the rooster crows tonight," now Jesus had said this to Peter before all of this happened, "you will say 3 times that you don't know me." And then Peter went outside and he cried with much pain in his heart. So what do we think that Peter was afraid of in this part of the story?
That's such a good question. It's such a good question because, you know, he always talked so big, you know, he was saying things like, you know, if everyone else runs away, I won't run away. And if everyone else like abandoned you or pretended they didn't know you, no matter what, I would stand by you. And then he does exactly the opposite thing. And it's a servant girl coming up to him. Like, it's not like it's a soldier with a spear. You know, it's just a group of people, and they're standing around a fire outside of the high priest's palace. And they're like, "Hey, you're with him, right?" And just in that moment, I guess he was so afraid of being captured or caught, or like maybe his imagination was going wild about what was happening to Jesus, and he thought, that's going to happen to me. You know, if, you know, because he's all like, "I'll go through whatever you go through." And then in that moment, like his imagination and his fear kind of collided, and he just was so terrified of being caught. So it's kind of weird because he had the courage to follow, you know, everyone else ran away and he followed from a distance, but he didn't have the courage to stand with Jesus there. So something happened in his heart and his imagination, and he got terrified.
And it's so true that all along for the past 3 years, while Peter's been following Jesus and listening and learning from Jesus, he would make these really big claims, right? And say, "I'm with you, Jesus. I love you. And I want to follow you." And it's a good reminder, I think, to us that it's really easy to say stuff like that when life is good and when life is easy and comfortable. And we can say, "Yeah, I trust God. I follow you, Jesus. I love you." But this is a moment where, like, you know, Peter has to decide, am I really going to trust in Jesus? And we see that he doesn't, and his fear becomes bigger than his trust in Jesus.
I really like how you put that, because it was a little bit like this was a test for him, right? Like, you know, he'd been saying things, and then this was actually like the test, and he definitely failed the test, and he knew that he had failed the test. And, you know, there was lots of times where Jesus corrected the disciples over the 3 years, and he'd said things like, don't talk like that, you know, and it never seemed to get in. But this got in. Peter really understood that he had failed. He wasn't the only one, though, right? We should talk about Judas.
Let's talk about Judas. Judas really had to decide what he was going to love more, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Peter was a little bit afraid of what other people were saying and what the consequences would be if he said he followed Jesus. But Judas had to decide if he was going to love God or love money more.
There are some verses about that. Are you have them ready? Okay, one second. I'm going to get my hat ready. I'm ready to listen. Go for it.
Okay. So one night Jesus is getting ready to die. Jesus knows that he is about to die, and a woman comes to him, and she knows that this is Jesus, the Son of God, and she wants to worship him and show him how much she loves him. And so she pours this perfume. She breaks this bottle open that was very expensive, and she gives it to Jesus. And it's, for her, it's a symbol of saying, Jesus, you are my king. But Judas, who was later going to betray Jesus, he objected to this. And he says in John chapter 12, why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was a year's worth of wages. And he didn't say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And as keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in it. And so he thinks this is just a waste of money. And then Mark tells us that on the night when Jesus was arrested, that Judas went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. And they were delighted to hear this, and they promised to give him money. So Judas betrays his friend Jesus for the money that the priests are willing to give him.
Yes. You know, as you were reading, I just had this picture in my head of Judas holding like a pouch or a bag of money, and the money is in his hand, and he sees it, and he sees Jesus, and he sees it, and he sees Jesus, and then this is the thing that wins out. Yeah. So people are sometimes afraid that, you know, like they won't have enough food or enough money, and then that fear of not having enough makes them selfish.
Right.
You know, like for example, sometimes around our table, I have 5 daughters. So my wife and I and my 5 daughters, and the food is on the table, and we have to take turns, and we have to share, and we have to make sure we don't take too much. And we do that because we love each other. But there is something inside each of us that's like, I want the best part. And so I can understand Judas, like, oh, the money is so real, and I hold it in my hand, and Jesus is saying all these promises, and maybe he is who he says he is. But, you know, then Jesus does some stuff that doesn't make sense to Judas. Like, in particular, we know that Jesus started talking about how he's going to die, right? And Judas is like, well, that's not how a hero talks. That's not how a person who's going to change the world talks. And that money starts to seem a lot more real to him than the promises of Jesus. And that's just so sad, how his fear of not having enough, and his fear of like, maybe he's thinking, I've wasted the last 3 years of my life following this guy around. Like, he's not the hero I thought he is. And that fear led him to do this horrible thing of betraying Jesus. That's really, really hard. Yeah, that's hard. So we had Peter, and we had Judas, and maybe Thomas.
Yeah, so Thomas is an interesting one. So Peter and Judas both really had actions, right? Things that they did because of their fear. But Thomas is an interesting one because his fear kind of changes how he thinks and what's happening in his heart.
Yeah, it's almost like he's afraid of thinking the wrong thing,
Yeah.
or afraid of being a fool, like, because you can be afraid of that too, and then you get really, really serious about the facts, and it's hard to believe.
Okay.
Here,
So
let me get myself ready here. You ready?
awesome.
Okay.
Let's go. Okay, so this is from John chapter 20. After Jesus died and rose again, and Jesus had come and shown himself to some of his disciples. But Thomas was not with the followers when Jesus came to see them. Thomas was one of the 12, and the other followers said to Thomas, "We saw the Lord. We saw Jesus. He's alive." But Thomas said, "I will not believe it unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and I will not believe until I put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side." A week later, the followers were in the house again, and this time Thomas was with them. The doors were locked, but Jesus came in and stood among them. He said, "Peace be with you." And then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. Look at my hands. Put your hand here in my side. Stop doubting and believe." And Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." And then Jesus told him, "You believe because you see me, but those who believe without seeing me will be truly happy."
Man, that's so good. It must have been really difficult for Thomas to feel like he was the smartest person in the room because he didn't believe. And then Jesus shows up and he realizes he was wrong, and in front of everybody. Like they all see that he was wrong. That must be hard. Fear makes us do silly things, and it makes us say silly things and think silly things that aren't good, things that aren't true.
And I wonder if Thomas kind of felt maybe similar to Judas, that he kind of felt like, well, Jesus was supposed to rescue us. He was supposed to save us. And
right.
Now he's dead. And so maybe in that time, Thomas starts to feel really let down, and he starts to feel like he's been tricked, and he's fearful of being tricked again. Right. And he doesn't want to fall for, he doesn't want to believe something that might let him down in the future. And so it's hard for him to trust again after he feels let down.
They must have all thought that they got it wrong, like they're thinking about the last 3 years, not just Judas, but all of them, and so much of that was because they didn't understand that the Messiah needed to die, that was God's plan, that Jesus was going to be that sacrificial lamb. And I just, one of the things that I feel most sad about thinking about this thing that happened, this true thing, is that Judas actually died without realizing that he was wrong. Yeah. The Bible tells us that he gave up on his own life when he gave up on Jesus. And that's not true for Thomas and Peter. When they saw Jesus later, they were able to overcome their fear and their lack of faith. And I think that's just a really good reminder that we get to choose whether we overcome our fear or whether we just kind of give up and lose to our fear. Having fear is normal, but we can win through that, or we can lose. And Peter and Thomas won, and Judas definitely lost.
Mm-hmm. And at this point in the story, where we're at with Jesus's death and resurrection, the disciples are confused and alone, and we're going to keep chatting about that.
Yes.
But I just want to encourage you at this point that you need to keep watching these episodes until the end, because right now we're talking about the time when Jesus died and everything was confusing and everything felt wrong. But we want you to keep watching and finish the story, because Jesus doesn't stay dead. And it's really amazing to see what happens to Peter and Thomas when they realize who Jesus really is and they actually understand it for the first time.
Fantastic. So we'll get more into that tomorrow, or the next episode that airs. Are we ready to move on to, let's see, some commotion?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So our friend, I have an apology to make too. I just remembered. We've been talking about our friend Natasha Crain and her new book. And I think in one of the episodes, I said that her new book is her second book, but she's actually written 3 books. And
shame!
I know. I'm sorry, Natasha. I'm so sorry. But her newest book, her third book, is called Talking with Your Kids About Jesus, and it is available now. And if you're interested in purchasing it, you can find the links down below.
Fantastic. That's so good. And of course, those of you who are out there, you know that Rachel is an author. Her and Andy wrote some books. What are your books called again?
Yeah, my books are called What Am I? And we talk about what it means to be a human, and What Am I Worth? And we talk about what's the value of your life.
Very nice. And you guys know that I make comic
books.
So they're here. If you like comic books, you like cartoons, you'll really, really enjoy that. Mine are kind of sneaky too, because I'm trying to teach some stuff. So sometimes, people will get it and they won't even realize they're learning. Isn't that great when you learn something you didn't even know it?
My favorite way to learn is when I don't realize I'm learning.
Yes. And also, if you're enjoying this, but the sight of us is a little off-putting, of course, you could just listen to us. We have those amazing podcasts, The Human Project for Kids.
Yeah.
And where do they find that? Is that on AC Kids or?
Yeah, so you can go to The Human Project for Kids online. You can also just search The Human Project for Kids wherever you listen to your podcast.
Fantastic. Good. Now, I would like to give a challenge. First of all, I'd like to say very, very well done on the challenges so far. I've been impressed. It was a little slow at the start, because people were finding off about it, but now it's picking up and that's good. So here's your challenge today. Everybody, are you ready?
Okay.
I would like you to send us pictures, but not just random pictures, very specific pictures. Send us the weirdest photo of yourself as a baby or small child, right? So weirdest photo of yourself as a baby or small child. And bonus, if there is food on your face.
Love it.
Bonus points. I think that a lot of them are just going to have that anyway. But bonus if there's food on your face. And if I could request this, just to be on the safe side, I don't want any pictures of any people in the bathtub or in the shower. I know that there's lots of baby pictures like that out there. I don't need that stuff. Show me some more funny stuff. That would be great. And you can send that to info@apologeticscanada.com, and we'll share our favorite submissions. And then you can take a look at it. It's really, really fun. I think that's everything for today.
Okay, that's it. We look forward to seeing your baby pictures, and we hope you tune into our next episode to keep talking about how we can trust God in scary times.
Well done. Reese out. Reese out. Bye.